All right, everyone. Today, we are diving deep into what are, without a doubt, the most dominant biological things on our planet, and yet most people have never even heard of them. We're talking about bacteriophages, the tiny, invisible rulers of the entire microbial world. So let's get into it.
Okay, to kick things off, just look at this number, 10 to the power of 31. That's a 1 with 31 zeros trailing behind it. And that's the conservative estimate for how many individual bacteriophage particles exist on Earth. It's a number so vast it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. But it tells you one thing loud and clear. We're dealing with a force of nature on a scale that is just unbelievable.
So what is a bacteriophage? Well, the name literally means bacteria eater. Simple as that. They are viruses, but they have a very, very specific target, bacteria. And for those of you who spent any time in a microlab, you'll recognize this site. When you grow phages on a petri dish that's completely covered in a dense lawn of bacteria, the phages just go to work. They infect and burst the bacterial cells, creating these little clearings called plaques. Each one is basically a tiny circular battlefield, showing you where a single phage started its invasion.
So here's our plan for this explainer. We're going to start by really trying to grasp the sheer scale of phage abundance. Then, we'll take a look at their incredible variety of shapes and break down their two main ways of reproducing. We'll also dig into their massive role as drivers of bacterial evolution. And finally, we'll look ahead to the exciting future of phage therapy.
Right, let's really put that number we saw earlier into perspective. It's one thing to say there are a lot of phages, but it's something else entirely to see how they stack up against, well, everything else.
This chart says it all, doesn't it? I mean, look at the bar for humans. You can barely even see it. Even the mind-bogglingly huge number of all bacteria on Earth, around 4 times 10 to the 30, is absolutely dwarfed by the bacteriophages. They outnumber bacteria by at least 10 to 1. Think about that. For every single bacterium on this planet, there are about 10 phages hunting it. This isn't just about being abundant, this is about total biological dominance.
Okay, so from that massive global scale, let's zoom all the way into the microscopic. Because phages aren't just one kind of virus. Oh no, they are an incredibly diverse bunch with a fascinating range of different structures, and each one is perfectly adapted to its specific bacterial prey.
We'll start with what you might call the classic phage look, a member of the Myoviridae family, kind of like the famous T4 phage. This thing is basically the hypodermic syringe of the viral world. You've got the icosahedral head or capsid, which holds all the genetic material, and then you have this really complex tail. The key part here is the sheath, which contracts with some serious force to punch the phage's DNA right through the bacterial cell wall.
Now let's look at a different design, from the Syphoviridae family. They might look similar at first, but check out the tail. It's long, but it's also flexible and crucially it's non-contractile. So instead of that powerful injection, the DNA gets in through a different but just as effective process. This family, which includes the well-studied lambda phage, is actually the most common type of phage you'll find out in the wild.
And just when you think you've got the hang of their structure, phages throw you a total curveball. This is a filamentous phage from the Innoviridae family. Gone is the whole head and tail thing. Instead, it's this long thread-like particle. These phages have a completely different way of infecting and reproducing, often sort of oozing out of the host cell without even killing it right away. It's a brilliant example of just how adaptable viral forms can be.
And finally, let's look at the complete other end of the complexity scale, with the Microviridae. These guys are tiny, really simple icosahedral phages with no tail at all. Their small size is also reflected in their genome. They carry single-stranded DNA, which is a big change from the double-stranded DNA we saw in most of the tailed phages. It's a perfect example of viral minimalism, just pure efficiency.
Okay, so we've seen their mind-blowing numbers and their wild shapes. But how do they actually achieve this incredible abundance? Well, it all comes down to reproduction. And for a huge number of phages, it involves a fundamental choice between two very different life cycles. First up, we have the lytic cycle. This is the all-out assault. It's a hostile takeover, pure and simple. The phage latches on, injects its genetic material, and immediately turns that bacterium into a mindless factory for one thing and one thing only, making more phages. All of the host's energy and resources are hijacked to build hundreds of new virus particles. And the grand finale? Lysis. The cell wall ruptures, and a brand new army of phages bursts out to find new victims. It's fast, it's brutal, and it is incredibly effective.
Now, phages that only use this destructive lytic cycle are called virulent.
But there's another type, the temperate phages, and these guys can make a choice. They can go lytic, or they can choose a much stealthier approach, the lysogenic cycle. In this case, the phage DNA doesn't immediately take over. Instead, it weaves itself right into the host bacterium's chromosome, becoming what we call a prophage. It just lies there, dormant, getting copied along with the host's own DNA, passed down from one generation to the next. And for any of you who've studied lambdaphage, you know this whole decision hinges on that classic molecular switch, that battle between the CI and CRO repressor proteins. But this isn't a permanent peace treaty. If the host cell gets stressed out, say from UV radiation, that can trigger the prophage to cut itself out and kickstart the lytic cycle, blowing the cell apart. It's a fascinating strategy of patience versus all-out aggression.
So this constant cycle of infection, replication, and death isn't just about making more phages. It has massive consequences, making phages one of the most powerful evolutionary forces in the entire microbial world.
Just through simple predation, phages stop any single bacterial species from completely taking over an ecosystem, which helps promote diversity. This sets up a constant evolutionary arms race, where bacteria evolve new defenses, things like changing their receptors or developing those sophisticated CRISPR-Cas immune systems, and in turn, phages evolve new ways to get around them. On top of that, phages are like little genetic delivery vans. Through a process called transduction, they can accidentally pick up genes from one bacterium and drop them off in another, including genes for antibiotic resistance. And sometimes, the prophage genes they carry can give their bacterial host brand new nasty abilities, like the toxins that cause diseases like cholera, diphtheria, and botulism. So you see, they're not just predators, they are literally architects of the bacterial genome.
This really intimate and often violent relationship with bacteria that's been going on for billions of years is now being looked at in a completely new light, not as a threat, but as a potential answer to one of medicine's biggest challenges.
That very same process, transduction, which helps spread antibiotic resistance, is also what highlights the huge problem we're facing. As our best drugs start to fail, the old idea of phage therapy is getting some serious new attention. The plan? To use the incredible specificity of phages to hunt down and destroy pathogenic bacteria while leaving our own cells and all our beneficial gut bacteria completely untouched. But it's not a simple fix. There are major hurdles, from getting through complex regulatory approvals with bodies like the EMA and the MHRA to the very real possibility that bacteria could evolve resistance to the phages too.
So we are left with this really tantalizing question. As the era of antibiotics seems to be coming to a close, could these ancient, superabundant, and highly specialized bacteria eaters actually hold the key to the future of medicine? The invisible rulers of the microbial world might just become our most powerful new allies. Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.